Hey everyone, welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive Show with me, Reed Dailey, episode number 34 of the show. If you new are around here, don't forget to hit that like, follow, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or LinkedIn. If you like reading this, you can get it on LinkedIn or through the LinkedIn newsletter. But before we jump in the show, I want to remind you all thoughts, ideas are my own and not shared by any other organization. And with that said, don't forget to connect with me on social. I'm a pretty social guy. You can find me on LinkedIn, X, Threads, Instagram, because my name is spelled so weird, Reed Dailey. You can find me pretty much anywhere. Just remember it's ReedDailey. And with all that said, let's jump into news and tech. All right, let's jump into news and tech. So for the first story, we're going to talk about Operator, which was recently introduced by OpenAI, and it combines GPT-4's natural language processing, visioning capabilities, and specialized computer using agents, or CUA, to help perform multi-step workflows, perform tasks such as booking accommodations, making restaurant reservations, and planning itineraries, all to simplify daily activities, reduce manual effort, and enhance efficiencies for pro plan users in the US. So, here were a couple takeaways from that. So, first of all, this has just recently been released. So, we're in inning one, pitch one. So, I want to first level set there. Two, I think it's really interesting of what this could do. So, if you think back 4 years ago, RPA was very much the hot topic. There were a few large players in the market doing some great work. The challenge was the economics sometimes didn't play out, where the cost of the bots outweighed the cost of manual labor or labor arbitrage from different parts of the world. And so people veered away from RPA once it got implemented because they just couldn't get it past, let's call the CFO or the office CFO, because it was too costly versus just using labor. When you think about the way that OpenAI has described Operator, this today is not necessarily going to be supported in the way that they're sort of, using their press release to solve complex operational challenges in an organization. That being said, if you think a year, 2, 3 years down the road, as OpenAI continues to expand its capabilities and more apps sort of do a better job of integrating, if you will, Operator could provide some great lift for individuals, business functions, and the organization at large. And let me explain what I mean there. So when you think about what Operator could do, so every week, many people have to do their timesheets, submit expenses, send status updates, and this could help with automating some of that workflow, either from, copy and pasting things, data entry, notifications, status updates, if then sort of statements from different business functions. And you could think about this as like the things that I do at my own desk, the things that I do in my sort of like pod or sort of workflow functional area, and then down the road, right, it could be large sort of functions like closing the books, sales forecasting, things like that, to big pieces of the organization being run by some sort of operator. So for those that are in the US on the Pro plan, highly recommend you checking it out. The demo was pretty powerful. Obviously, we're seeing what OpenAI is doing. You're starting to see small sort of looks of this from Microsoft. And of course, Salesforce has their solution as well. Next up is talking about a Series C funding update that I thought was relatively interesting. 11 Labs is a New York-based startup specializing in synthetic voice technology, and they raised $250 million for their Series C. Now, it was only founded in 2022, so we're less than 5 years, basically 2 or 3 years, and they've developed AI tools for voice cloning, dubbing, and text-to-speech translation. I sort of made the joke of cloning my voice. Did you even notice when I was writing this, I even thought about not being on camera and basically just feeding the script and hearing if you could hear the difference. And while I didn't do it, I did test it for certain pieces of this and using other people's voices that they have. They've got a bunch of presets in there. And I just didn't feel like training my voice. But in theory, 11 Labs is quickly becoming the backbone of voice technology, driving innovation across this industry. So a lot of people are using their API to power their capabilities. So you might be using another piece of tech, but it's powered by 11 Labs AI synthetic voice training. And so I think, I've got to do a little more research, but some of these AI agents where you see a person on screen, but they're using a different, they're using the visuals from one company and the audio from 11 Labs in certain situations. If you go over to 11labs.com or their website, you can go check out this solution and you get a 10-minute free credit to just try using their voices, and you can explore cloning your voice. I think down the road, I'm going to try to type this up and then just do a whole audio podcast using their solution. Probably going to do it when I'm like on the road a ton, but it was pretty incredible for the demo that I tested in advance of writing this. So go check it out. Very interesting things to come. Certainly going to be used for the podcasting world as they look to translate from certain languages to other languages. I see that as being a great application. Definitely for any sort of LMS companies that need to use the same training for multiple languages. And my guess is down the road from an enterprise level, we'll start to see translations of chatbots or folks that are sitting in different countries with different accents and using it to respond in call centers so that there's a removal of the accent effect. And heck, we're in America here. You could even argue that we have different accents, north, south, east, west, and you could be using it for regional accent matching to make the customer feel more at ease. Okay, next up is talking about the story everyone's talking about over the last 10 days, which is DeepSeek. DeepSeek, if you haven't been sitting under a rock, you probably know about it by now, but they claim that their reasoning model beats OpenAI's one on certain benchmarks. The Chinese AI lab DeepSeek released an open version of DeepSeek R1, its so-called reasoning model, that claims to perform as well as other benchmarks for $6 million. Now, there's been no sort of auditing of the financials, but even if it was 7x, it's still less than OpenAI's modeling. And what you're seeing is, IBM's CEO coming out and saying amazing things about this approach. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta coming out and saying great things about this approach. And really what this is sort of questioning is, one, until it's verified, is this true, obviously, but can these models be made for significantly less? And if so, what does that do for infrastructure costs? What does that do for energy costs? What does that do down the road for multiple organizations getting into the space? So it'll be very interesting to see how this has a material impact on the AI sort of ecosystem, not just its direct competitors, if you will. So when I was typing up this next story, it was really right around the time when we saw changing in the office and the TikTok ban. And one of the big things that I was interested in was less about TikTok being turned on and off. I'm not a user, but I can appreciate the solution, what it does. I'm very curious as to how much actual revenue they're generating domestically here. And obviously it's got a huge user base, but more importantly, it's got the usage base, which if you look at TikTok versus some of their competitors, it's pretty astonishing to see how much people are on TikTok versus Meta, YouTube, etc. It's pretty impressive. But what really struck me is how many of its competitors have gone out and released vertical videos. So right during, I believe, the inauguration period, you saw X release their vertical solution. Meta is releasing a third-party solution to help you edit and publish videos in sort of that vertical fashion. You obviously have YouTube shorts, and everyone is getting into this game. I mean, even myself and this podcast, I was very interested in how well long form contents, which is, the full length of this podcast and newsletter, perform versus the shorts. And from what little data I can provide from the, few shows that I've done now where I'm capturing what we'll call magic clips of these shorts, the shorts perform exceedingly well, almost 5 to 10x, and in certain situations, 15 to the regular video consumption. And it makes sense, right? They're part of an algorithm. You're just sort of doom scrolling on the weekends. You're sitting at home, sitting at the airport, sitting wherever, and you're just looking for content. And so how do more organizations tap into this type of content? Because video is just so much easier to consume and so much more appealing to consumers than reading something. And it will be just interesting to see from Blue Sky to Meta to X how these organizations continue to take advantage of vertical video. How much can they chip away at TikTok's kind of, dominance on the market, if you will, and what can they do in terms of enhancing or improving on that capability? All right. So we're going to dive into the deep dive of this week. And the headline I gave to this was Researchers Don't Sleep Either. And Origami Agents is a Y Combinator backed startup, which has raised $2 million in seed funding to enhance sales teams with AI support. And so when initially I read this, I was kind of thinking, okay, another solution that can help me sort of scrape or analyze LinkedIn data. Maybe it's something to do with the ability to look at, user search data or look at, kind of relationship maps. And this goes in a totally different direction, which I'm like thrilled for as someone who sells for a living. What Origami does is it's a technology empowering researcher, sales teams, and business developments to operate more efficiently and effectively, enhancing their ability to execute tasks and achieve their goals. So there's a couple things that it does really well, or use cases that it like supports in terms of users. So first of all, they've got the researcher agent. So this is AI agents, automated time-consuming research tasks, freeing up valuable time to focus on analyzing data and drawing insights. So if you're selling kind of commoditized solutions, probably less important. If you're trying to do something where you're bringing fresh ideas to the marketplace or you're doing sort of discovery work on behalf of a client, this is a great piece of technology and helpful capability. The next thing is that sales teams benefit from the technology to generate precise leads and automate repetitive research tasks. So they're looking for repeating buyers that are interested in sort of the same problem set. And then from a business developer standpoint, they've got high volume tasks and scaling, making it easy for you to do sort of large scale operations. They can identify potential business opportunities and streamline the process for boosting productivity. So it appears like a little bit like a workflow. Obviously, I'm looking at this from a press release, a website, and whatever YouTube videos I was able to find, which were not many. But in theory, it sort of helps me with researching, outreach, and engagement, and then looking for repeating trend analysis. And this is a great tool for anyone in a sales or BD role. I'm going to make sure that I tag the Origami solution here, but if anyone on the Origami team sees this, please DM me. I'm very interested to watch a product demo or just pay attention to like any sort of proprietary YouTube videos that you guys have had or sort of anything going on with the company. I'm very interested in your solution. All right, moving on to On the Road. Let's connect. So let's talk about where you can find me on the road, and let's make sure we connect. So we got two events coming up in the next week. So the first is the 2025 Built World's AI and ML conference down in Atlanta, Georgia, more specifically Buckhead. There are a number of conferences going on during this week down in Atlanta, so I wanted to give that sort of specification. But what I find really interesting with Built Worlds is they do a nice job of bringing investors, tech companies, and industry experts together to talk about specific topics. In this one, it's going to be AI and ML on construction tech. So if you're going to be participating or attending, be on the lookout for me. I'll be the one wearing some Jordan 1s. And I can't wait to see some of the demos. I've participated in a couple Built World events, and they do a fantastic job. Right after the first day, we are doing a private reception, and that will be at the Palms in Buckhead. And looking forward to bringing some folks together for some cocktails and good conversations on AI and ML in the enterprise. So if you're going to be in Buckhead or Atlanta, and you're in town for one of the many conferences, and you're looking really to connect with some folks, make sure that you reach out to me, DM me on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and let's connect and make sure you get included in the conversation and cocktail session. That wraps it up for this week's Digital Deep Dive. Really starting to try to get into the flow here of the structure of the show. I'm always looking for feedback. So if you can give me some feedback, I'd really appreciate it. For startups, sort of anything from seed all the way to sort of Series D and beyond, really interested to start to have more demos and walk through different features and functionalities and talking to their operating teams about how they're growing and scaling and what they're seeing in the marketplace. So you're going to start to see more Q&A sessions and demos with CEOs and sort of growth teams. So be on the lookout for those over the coming weeks. And as I mentioned in the start of the show, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and over on YouTube. We're going to be doing a lot more with YouTube this year on YouTube and YouTube Shorts. And then, of course, subscribe to the newsletter on LinkedIn. With all that said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next show.